So here's what came up on the great YouTube thread. Here's what I want to say. Steph, Klay, and Dre are declining, but they haven't declined. That's what I want to say. It's obvious that they're declining. Guess who else is? Everybody. Now, I know there's the whole ascending
Not my
player.
baby.
Yeah, exactly.
9 months old.
There's the ascending player, descending player thing.
Right.
Jordan Poole's not declining, although maybe he is. I don't know. But, right, Jonathan Kuminga, in theory, when he comes back in the fall, is going to be a better player. So he's not declining yet.
Life is a bell curve. All of us have in all of our lives, you bell curve up. There's a little bit of a plateau, and then you bell curve down.
Although I could make the case that the second you're born, you start dying, right?
Yes, but in terms of your potential to contribute to society and fulfill your destiny, you get to that certain point, personally, professionally, physically, emotionally, all of it, where you're at your peak. And for NBA players in the association, that peak is somewhere between 27 and 34, you could say. You don't often find a player who peaks after 34.
No, but I think that almost everybody peaks well before that. Like, I think, 20, 25, 20 to me feels like the number where somebody...
We're talking just NBA now.
Yeah, someone can be at the start of their peak. You can usually see it sometimes even before that. Like, has Tatum turned 25 yet? Tatum or Brown? Which one's younger? One of them's 26, and one of them, I think, is about to turn 25. But anyway... Which is why, by the way, stop telling me that they're awful players. Like, they're still barely in their mid-20s.
Tatum, 25.
There it is.
Born in 98.
And Brown?
26.
There you go.
Born in 97.
I love it. Everyone's like, oh, they stink. Yeah,
right?
Great. Good for you. They're phenomenal players, and they're only in their mid-20s. They are still ascending NBA players.
That's why I think 27 is that sweet spot.
I agree with you. But
I won't quibble with you over age.
No, I agree with you.
The range, I think, is somewhere in that 26 to 33 range.
When you get past 30 years old as an athlete, unless your name is Tom, you usually decline. Okay? So that's the deal. So, are Steph, Klay, and Dre declining? Obviously.
Yeah.
I can't argue with that. But understand, as I play semantics for a second, that I also believe they haven't declined. And we're overstating this when we talk about what the Warriors need to do next. I think we are using 3 for 19 as a reason to stay. Klay's done. We hear it at the end of every year. Remember, on the way into the Sacramento series, our buddy KC was like Draymond's toast. He's done.
We're going to backhand that. Beep.
Yeah, no, he's not. And Steph Curry, though he was legendary in Game 4 to win the finals last year, was better this year, which is plain to see if you go look at the numbers, if you couldn't tell game to game.
Yeah.
So this idea that, oh gosh, how do the big three win anymore when they're getting so old? You have zero evidence that those three do not continue to have the output right now that they collectively had last June when they won a championship. In my opinion, you have zero evidence. Klay, okay, you'll say he's not the same defender. He wasn't last June either. He's
better last June.
Compared to the guy he was in his 20s?
Well, compared to the guy he was this year. And let's just do a like-for-like comparison.
Okay.
Andrew Wiggins this year was not as good as he was last year. Mm-hmm. Draymond this year in the playoffs. And the thing about it, Mark, in terms of the decline, is the frequency of peak performance, the FOPP, as I like to call it. The frequency at which these guys can perform at their peak is a lot less, and that's where the decline shows up first. It's not that, oh my God, Klay, 3 for 19, that's who Klay is. And that's who Klay is all the time. But the reality is, for me, is that the player we remember Klay being, it comes up less frequently than it used to. And that's the same for Steph and the same for Draymond.
Is it the same for Steph?
I think so.
Really?
In terms of like really peak performances, he used to have maybe 3 of 4 games. Now maybe it's 2 of 3.
He feels
and
pretty...
2 of 3 is not 3 of 4, but it's close.
I don't see a huge difference. And in fact, if we do want to bring in the defensive side of the ball, Steph is a way better defender now than he was 7 years ago.
Well, 7 years ago, yeah, but
Yeah.
we're talking about year over year, like versus like, the championship year versus this year.
If I asked you this, if you made them all one entity, Steph, Klay, and Dre, and the
A
collective
three-headed monster.
the three-headed monster and their output right now as compared to June of last year, what is greater than or is it equal?
I'd say down about 4%.
Do you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Based on what?
Based on the Klay portion, primarily. I think the Steph would be about the same. He wasn't better this year. I don't think he was necessarily better.
He was better.
Not in the playoffs, Mark. He was very inefficient. He scored, but it took a lot more for him to score that.
I don't you think then we're overstating what happened in just a 2-week period? His season this year was markedly better than his season last year, no?
Wow, season.
Yeah.
He only played 54 games. So
Well, he got hurt both years.
right, he played more games last year, I believe.
He did. But like he shot the ball markedly better this year.
And
than he
Klay
did the year
led the
before.
league in three-pointers made, but also three-pointers taken.
Yes.
So, and he
I'm not-
shot a good percentage.
Again, and I guess what this boils down to is if you're talking about the output for all three, I never would have stated, even in their prime, if they're not in their prime anymore, even in their prime, was the presence of the three of them enough? I mean, how
we already debunked that in the opening segment.
I mean, at a high level or at a low level, like how dismissive is that of the Sean Livingstons and David West and Leandro Barbosas of the world, the people, Harrison Barnes even, the people who have had
Jordan Bell,
Jordan Poole. I mean,
Patrick McCaw, Quinn Cook.
Thank you.
I mean, if you're going to be fair, let's be fair, Mark.
Let's be fair.
Let's
be Elitza together.
Be Elitza.
Okay,
that's a 4.
I mean, all of these players, it has to work. It has to work. It's not even just like their contribution in the box score. The whole picture has to work. And to me, that's what I walk away from this year with. I walk away from this year and I go, something in the stew didn't taste right. But I don't walk away from this and go, there's a basketball problem with these players. I don't think that at all.
I think both.
I think there's a problem with whatever was in the stew this year, and that bleeds into basketball. But if you're asking, are Steph, Klay, and Dre talented, and Andrew, sure, Kavan, are they talented enough to still be the core of a team that succeeds at the highest level? I have zero doubt. Like zero doubt.
Well, the phrase succeeds at the highest level to me is just nebulous enough to where I'm going to have to follow up. Because to me, succeeding at the highest level means you win a championship. Mm-hmm. And if that's what you mean, then I disagree with you.
Okay.
Now, can they add a couple pieces and still make it happen? Of course. You never know how the ball is going to bounce. But
that's kind of all I'm talking about.
But just on paper, if you look at the big five as you have just laid it out, and whatever ancillary pieces you want to throw in, I don't think that's enough.